How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another daily movie review. Today, we're going to be talking not about just one movie. We're going to be talking about broadly about three movies. The Riddick movies and also this cartoon anime that's also in there. Directed by the guy who created Ion of Flux, the cartoon from Liquid Television. But yeah, so when I was sick, it's been a few weeks. It's been about like a little over a month probably since I actually watched them. I meant to do a video about them a long time ago, but I kind of forgot about them. I watched them all like back to back, one long sick day. It had been a long time since that I had revisited the first two. I've actually watched this one a few times, and out of the three of them, just right up front, I think this is the best one, honestly. I think it is the perfect balance between what you want and what they intended for a Riddick movie to be. Because each of the other movies, I think, has interesting aspects to it. Um, like, let's just start at the beginning. The original Pitch Black comes out in 2000. Being kind of a sci-fi nerd looking for a good science fiction movie, I think I gave it a pass. I think I liked it well enough. It's got, cool alien planet. It's got some monsters. It's got intriguing characters. Not really much of a mystery. Coming back to it now, it definitely plays a lot flatter. I'd say it kind of reminded me of a sci-fi channel movie, like a sci-fi channel original movie, because it's clearly got like a lower budget and they're out there in a desert and there's very limited sets and all the money is kind of spent in the special effects department for these creatures, which, makes sense. It's got doesn't have much in the way of character development, and Riddick is not as cool as Vin Diesel and David Twohy think he is. This whole series is basically a marriage between David Twohy and Vin Diesel's ego. I'm not sure how much input Diesel has on like how the story and how the movies went forward, but I know he's a big proponent of getting them made. Obviously, I mean he's the big cheerleader out there trying to get these movies made. Like this Riddick 3 being made was kind of a minor miracle. It was definitely not really supposed to happen because what happened was the second movie in the franchise, The Chronicles of Riddick, was kind of a giant bomb. It was a huge budget, but it just did not do very well. Which is another movie. It's got things that work, but a lot of stuff that doesn't, and it's a little too silly for its own good. And the fantasy elements never really come together. But I will say this: you got to give people a lot of credit for actually trying to do something completely different than they did with Pitch Black. Like it really does feel like a completely different movie, completely different setting, different kinds of characters. It kind of broadens the world out, I suppose. I'm not sure. You wouldn't have assumed this was the world that Riddick existed in, or one of the the cultures and stuff, the things that they deal with the necromancers. You wouldn't assume that is where it would go. So I imagine it would probably be pretty interesting, maybe just even on face value. I imagine so. I can't remember. It's been so long. I saw it. I think I saw it when it came out, but I'm not sure if I ever actually watched the whole thing. I had sense memories of some of the aspects of the story and the look of the movie for sure, and definitely the necromancers, necromagers, whatever the fuck they're called. I'm very well informed about this, what I'm talking about right now. I had a sense memory of it, but I couldn't remember exactly. And while watching it now, it just feels like a victim of just over plotting. It's overly complicated, in a way that just feels tedious at a certain point. I just don't. It just feels overstuffed, and I don't understand really what the purpose of some of it was. There's too many characters. There's too much stuff. Riddick feels like a passenger for a lot of the movie, oddly enough, because it has to focus so much on world building and it has to focus so much on the intention of the antagonist that it kind of just falls flat. The character of Riddick falls flat. He's just there to be cool. You don't really feel like you really kind of get invested or his character is deepened in any type of meaningful way. He feels largely the same as he does at the end of the first movie, Pitch Black, where it's well, he's a reluctant hero and he did something and now by circumstances he's a hero. It's not necessarily in his nature, or is it? Right? That's the question with Riddick. But he feels very static. He doesn't feel like he changed very much. Which is which is fine, I guess. It's fine for a throwaway action science fiction fantasy film from the early 2000s, 2004 this came out. I mean, Vin Diesel was huge, dude. Remember Triple X? That's an awful movie. That's a fucking awful movie. I can't rewatch Triple X. I tried to watch, was it The Return of Xander Cruz, the one that came out a few years ago? That was awful too. Not even a fun one. I don't have fun with those movies being awful. Same thing with the Fast and Furious movies. I know people find it very strange, but like I am not into those movies. They do not work for me. Even ironically, they do not work for me. I would say the best one is Fast 5. If I have to pick, I'm not sure. Is Fast 9 out? No, I've seen all of them though. I don't know why. Why do I watch those movies? I don't like them. Honestly, I find them mildly upsetting. I get like so fucking irritated when I watch them. I'm like, this is it? Stop this franchise. Stop it. They're superheroes at this point. It's ridiculous. Anyways, that's neither here nor there, I suppose, other than the Vin Diesel connection. But I had like, so I hadn't watched them in a long time. It had probably been, since mid 2000s since I watched them. And when this came out a few years ago, Riddick, the third film in 2013, I kind of like thought I was looking forward to it. I was like, oh, cool, a new Riddick movie. Why not? It's 9 years since the last one. It probably had been 9 years since I had seen it. I was like, oh, cool. And when you watch it, it's very pleasantly surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised by how well it actually works as a sequel to the last one, but also kind of going back to basics, to the like kind of the pitch black structure. I thought it did a really good job. It has like the first half of the movie is kind of like a man versus nature. Riddick on this kind of weird alien planet. He has to figure out a way to survive. Then he kind of runs up against these mercenaries, and these mercenaries have to deal with like these monsters on the planet. So it's kind of got a little bit of everything. And it's actually really good. The first hour of the movie is fantastic. All the stuff with just Vin Diesel on the planet surviving is fucking awesome. It's got kind of almost like a Mad Max type vibe to it. Like I can imagine a Mad Max movie being a lot like this. But yeah, and the character doesn't have to front. Like he doesn't have to be like cheesy, because Riddick is just a corny character. Like the version of cool that Vin Diesel is doing in Riddick as the character Riddick is not cool. It's movie cool. It's bad movie cool. It's what Vin Diesel thinks is cool. You see this pretty much in every role he plays. He plays the same dude. I mean, I even saw, quarantine times being as desperate as they are. I saw Bloodshot back when it came out. Back when it was released on VOD. And he's like the same type of character in that. I mean, maybe a little bit more lighthearted, maybe more relaxed, but I mean, Riddick is just a quipping, cool, badass, most dangerous man on the planet because he's written to be that way type of dude. So when you can kind of remove the human element, the other people from the Riddick movies, I think his character actually works a lot better. Like the physicality of the performance and Riddick's kind of attitude works a lot better. I will say though, once you get into meeting the mercenaries and whatnot, it's actually they're a lot more interesting than any of the characters like in the other movies. This early Dave Bautista role. It's got Katie Sackhoff from from BSG, Battlestar Galactica, one of my favorites. Jordi Mola, Matt Nable. They're all really good, and they're an interesting crew. They got an interesting dynamic. I think it overall works pretty well. Reminds me a lot of like a John Carpenter-y kind of vibe to it. And that worked for me, like, an Assault on Precinct 13 or even Ghosts of Mars, but like not a bad one. If you want to see my Ghosts of Mars review, it's up. I reviewed that a while ago. I think I talked about it for almost like a half an hour, if you can believe that shit. Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe to it, and I like a siege vibe almost, even though they're not really laying siege to anything. It's more of a defensive posture, but I enjoyed it. And I still enjoyed it. Out of all of them, Riddick, the third one, I think is still the best one. And I think it is the most well-made. The character is most well-represented. It's the least grating one. It's a very simple story. And I think that works in its favor. like I said, the Chronicles of Riddick is so overwritten. It's so overdone that it just gets boring and it's kind of tedious. And even though some of the characters are kind of cool, I like Carl Urban, like some of the world building is cool, but the particulars of the plot is just fucking mind numbing. They want to do some like grand Caesar-esque, like Julius Caesar type type of story, and it just did not play for me. Not for me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was sick. I watched it when I was in the throes of COVID. But even now, like even a few weeks later, like a month later, I'm having like trouble really remembering the movie, like remembering all the specific turns and whatnot. I just remember it being a lot. That's what I remember. And having that 2004 vibe. That 2004 like Hollywood science fiction vibe that I just don't like. I don't know. That's just me. It's just this weird era of like kind of plastic. We were getting away from like practical effects and practical aesthetics, and it's just like kind of a worse, not a great example of that. And Vin Diesel, or not Vin Diesel, I saw his name on this cover, so I said it. It's late. This is like the sixth one I've done today. As Riddick in this, like even this has a lot of CGI, but we've kind of figured it out, I think, at this point, to do the kind of basic, simple stuff. There's a lot of use of color correction in the cinematography rather than, I think, total augmentation and total CGI. The special effects work pretty well in this because they're not meant to be flashy. They're meant to be kind of background. So it's not trying to draw your eye constantly to it in the same way that maybe something like Chronicles of Riddick did. Like it's always trying to be like big and operatic, and the scale is supposed to be huge. Here, the scale is very small, so it just ends up working better. But yeah, if you want, I would honestly, like, if I were to tell people to watch these movies, I would say like maybe just read a primer and watch just the third one. Just watch Riddick. I don't know if the other movies, maybe Pitch Black. I think, to be fair, you could give Pitch Black a pass. If you're in the right mood, you could probably give Chronicles of Riddick a pass. Maybe I'm just a huge liar, but I don't know if it's worth suffering through the other two movies or getting through the other two movies to watch the third one. It's not that good. It's not so good that you're like, you need 4.5 hours of preemptive viewing to watch it. I don't know if it's worth that. Maybe just try to watch Riddick. Just put that one on. Don't worry about the other ones. I think there's a recap in the beginning. You'll figure it out. It honestly doesn't really matter. There's something that happens in the plot that is obviously very specific to what happened in the last movie, but I feel like they tell you. They give you like a recap. They're like, previously on the Chronicles of Riddick. In this collection here, because one of the reasons why Chronicles of Riddick failed is because they had like this, they wanted to do comic books and like, big multimedia marketing stuff, and they made this anime, The Chronicles of Riddick Dark Fury. Yeah. Now I gotta look up this dude's name. But the guy who created Ion Flux, the cartoon on MTV, Liquid TV, is that what it was called back in the day? Peter Chung does the anime, and let me tell you something, or the animated episode. It's actually pretty good. I was surprised, and I didn't know that he had directed it before I watched it. And I was watching it, I'm like, is this the guy who did Ion Flux? And lo and behold, it was. He has a very recognizable and unique aesthetic, and it carried through. And honestly, it kind of made the case for that Riddick would probably be best suited to like an Aeon Flux type animated series where you would just have like these 20-minute episodes, like adult cartoon episodes. That would actually honestly probably be the best way to experience the character, because he is static. He doesn't grow very much. He doesn't change at all. So you just put him in situations, make the situation be the thing that's interesting, and have Riddick have to solve the puzzle. I mean, honestly, that's what the movies kind of are, but they're just fucking 2 hours long. And that's, it's hard to grapple with or grasp onto a character that is that like ephemeral. he's just affectation, you know? There's not a lot going on there in the old. I'm sure Vin Diesel has some deep lore going on in his own brain, but I don't think he's communicating that all very well. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, you want to keep up to date with everything Zoobox Nation, bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for these daily videos, please throw it in the comments and I'll put it on the list. All right, everybody. Good night.